Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
You have to be tough to live in Montana, and Mother Nature is helping toughen us up by giving us extra snow to shovel this month. It's been a brutal February, extremely cold, lots of snow, and not much of any kind of break. My meteorologist brother is going to compare this month to a very harsh February back in 2019. For some experienced Montanans, they were able to enjoy skiing without any traffic on the slopes at Bridger Bowl. One cold weather warrior shares his secret to staying warm. For families feeling cooped up and need a break from the cold, there is an exciting option you're going to want to hear about for the kids. We have to remember that the harsh weather is harder for some people without the means. One Montana photographer is using her art to help give back. Thanks for coming back for more MTN Outdoors. I'm Keith Grevenitz.
February of 2019 was one of the harshest stretches of winter weather in Montana's history. Countless records were set that month, and when all was said and done, it was one of the coldest months ever in Montana. The average temperature for that month was below zero for Great Falls, Cut Bank, and Havre. Chinook had the coldest average temperature at 6.2 below zero. The coldest temperature that month was 46 below, just north of Havre, and the coldest wind chill that month was an incredible 70 below, just north of Opheim. For that month, Helena averaged 20 degrees below normal, Great Falls 26 degrees below normal, and Havre was an incredible 27.2 degrees colder than average. It was very snowy too, with Cut Bank, Great Falls, Helena, West Yellowstone breaking records for precipitation. Well, fast forward 6 years, and this February so far is rivaling that month's cold and snow. So far this February in Helena, it's 22 degrees below normal with nearly 18 inches of snow, 4 times the normal amount to date. It's colder in the capital this February than in 2019. Great Falls has averaged 25 degrees below normal so far this month, with more snow to this point than what normally falls for the entire month. And February 2025 in Havre has been nearly 24 degrees colder than normal, with 250% normal snowfall. The average temperature for the month so far, 4.3 below zero. Just north of Havre has had multiple nights with temperatures as cold as 44 below, and just a few days ago, Havre's wind chill dipped to 65 below. February 2025 is not over yet, and the coldest temperatures of this month and possibly of this entire winter have moved into the state, so those averages will get even lower. Nothing about this February has been close to average, making this one of the most brutal months in state history. And now you're a little more weather-wise.
At Bridger Bowl, both Tuesday and Wednesday morning, they had delayed openings due to frosty weather. But despite temperatures dropping down into the negatives, there's still quite a few people out here skiing. So let's go talk to some of them. Where are you looking to ski today?
Bronco. It's got really good bumps.
I hopped on a lift with Paul Stark, one of the few who braved the cold at Bridger Bowl Tuesday.
That's the closest I have ever parked by about 5 rows.
Paul is from Fairbanks, Alaska. He's used to skiing in negative 40-degree weather, so his suggestion for staying warm on days where temperatures dip below zero...
Layers. Okay, right here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of clothes.
But for many, no matter how many layers, it was still too cold to hit the slopes.
The upside is there's nobody else out here.
Yeah.
You know, you're on a mountain, a huge mountain with maybe 50 other people.
It may not be as low as 50 people, but Bridger Bowl tells me they had around 600 skiers, while their average for a Tuesday is around 2,700 skiers. When I arrived around noon, main groomers were still untouched. There wasn't a soul in the bowl, chairs were mostly empty. In fact, the lodge saw a bigger crowd than any lift line. But for Ben and Adam, who were on the final day of their guys' ski trip, they weren't gonna let the cold stop them.
Probably could have used some sort of balaclava or something for my face, but you know, once the ice sets in, it's kind of like a shield.
But Ben's mustache full of ice had me wondering.
Do you think for folks that were up skiing at Bridger today, frostbite could have been a risk?
It can be, yeah. Any exposed skin, especially when the temperatures are below zero, are really vulnerable to frostbite.
Jason Ravisky has been with Gallatin County Search and Rescue for around 30 years. He tells me another concern recreating in the cold?
Hypothermia, same thing. We'll get cases of people mildly, even maybe to moderately hypothermic that is not necessarily life-threatening. They just need to get out of the cold.
Which is why when temperatures drop below zero, Ravisky advises
It's not a bad idea to spend a little indoor time and maybe get your laundry done.
But here in Montana, if the hills open, the skiers will come. So in order to prevent frostbite or hypothermia out on the slopes, Ravisky advises the same as Paul.
I think successful layering, having long underwear, base layer on,
Followed by an insulated layer, then an additional hard shell to block wind and snow.
gloves or mittens that are, hefty enough, warm enough for the conditions, a hat, neck gaiter, something to cover your face.
Because proper layering can make all the difference.
It's cold. It's certainly cold.
This is not cold. This is balmy.
In Bozeman, Cassidy Powers, MTN News.
From the outside, Lava Island is merely a place to relieve the burden of entertainment.
A lot of parents have expressed to us they're glad to have a spot to gather for parties that isn't their house.
While it's a getaway from winter weather,
It's indoors, which is great for the crazy winters and sometimes the really smoky summers.
for co-general managers Miranda and James Duncan, the experience has a deeper warmth.
While we were in Denver for my son's cancer treatment, we actually ended up spending a lot of time at Lava Island and befriended the owners who were very nice to us. What it truly provided for our family, dang it.
We really struggled with all of the challenges that he was facing as a 9-year-old, but also all of the challenges that our 6-year-old daughter was facing as well.
The Colorado branch of this business provided relief, returned normalcy when this family needed it most.
What Lava Island did for our family in Colorado was to give Jocelyn a chance to get out and be a kid when Nathan and we couldn't be.
It's part of why they put so much care into the last few weeks and years before opening, even finding the space for the business to branch out.
We've designed the play structure so every level is 7 feet high. We've designed it in a way that families can play together.
Now the two say it's time to share a little relief, allow families some space to be together.
Every family has their own challenges. Everybody goes through the big things and the little things.
As kids, that is our job, to have fun and play.
Marcus Kakova, MTN News.
Gene Larson says a few dollars goes a long way. It can mean a gallon of gas to help somebody get to work or a pound of ground beef to help feed a family.
Gene Larson is many things. A dog lover, a nature photographer, but most importantly, a giver who believes no act of kindness is too small.
I've had so many experiences in my life where I've really seen the need, and it just breaks my heart that people are struggling.
On Larson's A Closer Look photography website, there are currently 4 fundraisers going on, benefiting organizations like Habitat for Humanity and a local Shepherd church.
I figured it would be a good pairing of the photographs plus being able to give back to people.
But one mission in particular spoke to Larson. The I'll Actually Help Billings Facebook page, which is a private group for people needing temporary assistance. The founder of the group, Elizabeth Pincolini, wanted to create a safe and judgment-free zone to ask for assistance.
We just wanted to make sure that, people aren't humiliated for being, for asking for help, and to actually maybe get a little assistance if they needed it.
I just saw a lady that just needed a pound of ground beef. She had nothing to make her family for dinner. $20 for gas. Diapers for a child.
When purchasing one of Gene's photos with the code Help Billings, 50% of the profits will be used for members of the Facebook group. Elizabeth says this small act of kindness will go a long way.
Just letting people know that this is out there and that people need help, I think, is bringing attention to the group. And I think that alone is probably super valuable and just, more resources for people who need them.
Whether it's food, gas money, or help with medical prescriptions.
Things that everybody else or a lot of people take for granted.
It's something small but could mean the most for those in need. In Shepherd, Matt Carmack, MTN News.
You're watching MTN Outdoors.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
With weather this big and impactful, the subject hardly feels like small talk around here, especially when so many are hard at work to make sure folks are safe. Like we've said before, there really aren't any snow days here. Workers are tough and those roads have to be cleared so they can get there. When the mercury is barely registering in the thermometer, you definitely want heat specialists able to get to your home. We all work together as a community to take care of each other. On this weather-focused episode of MTN Outdoors, we're shining a light on what it takes to keep Montana running.
I'm MTN's Heaven Van, and today I'm here at Johnson Metalworks in Bozeman to see how they handle work and safety on extreme cold days like today.
There's nothing that really slows us down. That sometimes is the unfortunate truth of construction work in Montana. There's a high demand and really nothing slows us down, weather related.
John Fierstein and Lyle Hendrickson work for Johnson Metalworks, focusing on a range of projects from structural to architectural metal fabrication.
Most of the time, if we're calling off work, it's because it's super high wind that you're getting too much dust in the air or lightning.
But they say cold temps and snow still pose a variety of issues for metalworking, whether it's out in the field or in the shop.
A lot of guys will be getting on a job site and you're shoveling for an hour or two. You preheat for a while and then, everything takes longer. It's a lot harder on equipment.
Lyle says one of the biggest challenges for metalworking in the cold is preheating metal to get the right temperatures for welding.
You won't get correct fusion pretty much, and you can get different kinds of cracking going on, and pretty much it's not a structurally sound weld if you're not up to temperature while performing your weld.
John says they're responsible for dressing for the weather, and those who don't figure out how to fast with gear like
mostly bibs, leather gloves. If you got a heated jacket, that's the way to go. Warm clothes, and then especially if they get wet, that's a big deal. So extra clothes. So you almost bring in, the smart guys bring extra socks and extra gloves.
But John says sometimes the cold weather isn't all that bad.
Because they'll keep the guys moving and, stay warm instead of standing around when it's 90 degrees out, finding shade. They'll have to keep moving. So it's usually can be working our benefit sometimes.
In Bozeman, Heaven Van with MTN News.
With winter conditions impacting travel, getting to a destination safely is the top priority. And the Montana Department of Transportation has some tips to make sure you do just that. You can only control how you drive. So MDT says keeping a safe distance behind other drivers is key, especially when it comes to plows, which tend to operate at slower speeds. And since multiple plows were hit by other drivers this month, those are now out of commission until repairs can be made. MDT says drivers should not pass plows unless absolutely necessary. And they note to never pass a tow plow, which are 26-foot wide trailers that allow the driver to remove 2 lanes of snow in one go. Plows tend to pull over for drivers to pass when conditions are safe enough to do so. Plows have green and orange flashing lights, alerting drivers to slow down for a plow ahead on the road. Sometimes the lights are all you see, or nothing at all, since plows kick up snow clouds, impacting visibility. MDT advises to not drive through the snow cloud, as you could strike the extended wing of a plow or hit another plow working in tandem. They say to drive with headlights on, day or night, no matter the color of your vehicle or weather conditions. Driving slower and allotting extra travel time is an important practice. Stay tuned in to our Storm Tracker weather for the latest updates on driving conditions. And always be safe out there. In Missoula, Emily Brown, MTN News.
When you first walk outside, it seems beautiful. The sun is shining, the snow is shoveled, but looks can be deceiving, and we all know how quickly bad things can happen when it's this cold. We all know the feeling.
Usually comes every year. There's usually at least a few days of it.
That moment when the weather turns blistering cold and it's difficult to even get in your vehicle for the day.
When the temperature drops down below 0, our phones ring off the hook.
But Caleb Simcox isn't just running his own personal errands. He's gearing up for a busy day of work.
Hello? Hey, good morning. This is Caleb with White. How you doing today?
Simcox works as a technician for White Heating and Air Conditioning. He says the extreme cold always means some extremely busy work days.
If there's something that's kind of teetering on the edge that was maybe getting ready to go out on it, usually this running it constantly in this weather will escalate whatever it's got going on.
And that's exactly what's going on here, as the cold weather is speeding up problems with one Billings resident's furnace.
We can see hundreds of calls inside of an hour, and trying to deal with every one of them gets very difficult because the phones just don't quit ringing when it gets this cold.
Owner Kurt White says Simcox project is just one of dozens of calls they'll receive on a day like today. A good reminder to have your furnace checked before every winter.
It's a lot easier to deal with it versus catching it when it's 20, 30 below and we're extremely busy.
Though White understands stuff happens.
We start early and we run late.
Especially on days as cold as this.
All hands on deck and run as many calls as you can.
In Billings, Charlie Kleps, MTN News.
It's a beautiful day at Great Divide, and you're watching MTN Outdoors. Woo! Hey, bud.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Speaking of workers keeping you safe in Montana, first responders definitely don't get any breaks for weather. In fact, harsh weather probably makes them busier. After you see what a normal shift for some rural EMTs looks like, you'll have a renewed respect for what they do. Like we saw before the break, you have to give snowplows on the roads the right of way. This rule definitely applies to emergency vehicles as well. If you see the lights behind you, pull on over. Many are worried about what Forest Service cuts could mean for when wildfire season hits. We're learning more about that too.
So we're going to these houses here. We tend to go on them quite a bit with overdoses.
The wail of sirens, the rush to respond. Every second counts. When emergencies strike anywhere in Montana, paramedics and EMTs are often the first to arrive, providing life-saving care on the scene. For this edition of Odd Jobs, I spent 2 days riding with an ambulance crew, watching as they navigated through both city and rural environments, answering call after call. But it's not all action. The medics have to train very regularly. One call takes us deep into the Dearborn, where aerial medical responders couldn't get to immediately. We traded the ambulance for a volunteer Subaru, and then again for a fire department SUV.
If we can't land at the scene itself, we're going to try and go further down the hill towards the Y. We're Upper Sawmill Forks with Tri-Fork Lane.
After an hour of snowy driving, we met the Mercy Flight crew to help transport the patient to the helicopter.
No, this is the board. He's only about 80 pounds. He's not very heavy.
Okay, so everybody grab something. Old school furlough.
If we want to just pull it right up to here, to the edge, then we can actually get a handle to something to pull them out.
Okay, I got the stretcher.
Okay. Big step up. Careful, slow down.
On the way back from the rural ambulance response, we received a call for an unresponsive patient. Sirens on, gas pedal down. When we arrived, it was evident that things were not good. Luckily, a firefighter crew arrived on scene at the same time and provided critical muscle to move the patient and additional medical support.
Spin. That's it. Push it down and spin it in until it locks.
It's a team effort. Fire, EMS, police, and even air medical services all working together to give people the best chance of survival. Montana's EMS workers respond to tens of thousands of emergency calls every year, ranging from heart attacks and strokes to car crashes and drug overdoses. Across the state, paramedics and EMTs are in high demand, with many rural areas relying strictly on volunteers to provide these life-saving services. From the streets of Great Falls to the frozen backwoods of Montana to the skies with Mercy Flight, EMS teams are always ready, prepared to answer the call. And with an ever-growing need for emergency medical responders, local agencies encourage those interested to look into training and certification. Without even enough time to stop for lunch, the medics are once again responding to an emergency call as I depart them for the night. In the toughest spots of Montana, I'm James Rowland, MTN News.
It's quite a bit of chaos and a lot of uncertainty.
That's because the current federal hiring freeze, even for seasonal workers, hits just when the parks are gearing up for the summer season.
Now is the time would be hiring seasonal staff in Yellowstone, Grand Teton, and Glacier.
The National Parks Conservation Association says Yellowstone alone hires 300 to 350 seasonal workers each summer.
And without those people, there's going to be significant impacts on Yellowstone and on our communities.
The Institute for Tourism and Recreation Research says non-residents spent $5.45 billion in the state in 2023. The group estimates 4.4% of Montana's economy depends on outdoor recreation. That's the most of any state. Ubaraga says the process of hiring summer workers started last September, and because of federal rules, takes a long time.
There's quite a few background checks. There's a really extensive process, even once people are hired.
But the clock is ticking.
If the freeze is limited and we start back up where we left off, there's still time to hire people for the summer season. If the records are scratched and we're starting back from zero, where we started in September, there's not going to be enough time.
Full-time workers are also affected. Like other federal workers, they got the memo offering a job buyout or an uncertain future.
Morale is really low.
Here at Yellowstone National Park, as in parks across the country, there have been employee shortages for decades. The workers are keenly aware of that, even more so now.
So it's deeply personal to people that have spent their lives committing their careers to Yellowstone to potentially have to end it and end it in not a good way. That does not feel good.
Yellowstone staff declined to comment on the hiring freeze, but national park officials in Washington, D.C. say there are some exceptions to the hiring freeze and that the Park Service is assessing its most critical needs. At Yellowstone National Park, John Shearer for MTN News.
Thanks for watching MTN Outdoors. Stay safe, stay warm, and join us next week for more Montana Magic.